Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of this season's Chamber on Tap, powered by Cannabis Credit Union. My name is Curtis Forcier, Regional Manager with Primerica Financial Services, and proud member of the Chamber on Tap team. This team is made up of a combination of Chamber staff and Chamber members who volunteer to plan and execute this season's Chamber on Tap. Our Chamber staff team members are Trina Scully, Kendra Cruson. Our volunteer team members are Annika Forcier, Cody Podherdesky, Nadine Kanigan, and myself. Team, can I get a wave from you if you're out there? We got Annika, Trina, thank you very much. You will notice, and if you didn't, maybe you're colorblind, you should get that checked out, that we're wearing these orange blazers. The reason we have these on is to help us stand out as a volunteer. So if you want to meet someone or have a question about Chamber on Tap or anything Chamber, you can talk to myself, anyone in orange blazers, or any of the Chamber staff. As is well known, the mission of the Greater Saskatoon Chamber of Commerce is to promote and build our community through prosperity and business, where we represent over 80,000 individuals. For more information on the advocacy efforts of your chamber and upcoming events, go to saskatoonchamber.com. And remember to follow us on social at Stoon Chamber. That's S-Toon Chamber. Speaking of upcoming events, I always like to highlight a few events later in the month to put in your calendars. If you've not already done so, pull out your phones and enter these next few events. On Thursday, January 16th, at the Chamber office is a free, no-obligation information session on the upcoming Chamber trip to Thailand. Who wouldn't want to be on a trip to Thailand with the Chamber team? Next is the Bridge to Business Technology panel at the Delta Hotel downtown, formerly the Radisson, with guest speakers Brendan King with Vendasta, Jordan Duchak with Collabs, and Patrick Thera with Callian SED. Find out what is happening in your own backyard from a tech perspective. Also, early bird pricing for SABEX Awards is on right now until February 14th. And if you don't know, SABEX is on April 24th of 2020. Lastly is Chamber 101, which is going to be right here at LB Distillery on February 5th, before the next episode of Chamber on Tap. If you want to learn how to get the most out of your Chamber membership, this is a must-attend event. Also, now that you have your phones out, this is a great time to put them on silent, please, if you can, because I swear if some music comes on, I might start dancing, so you better have those on silent. And if you miss any of the details on the upcoming events I just mentioned, or if you're interested in registering for any of those events, for all things Chamber, go to saskatoonchamber.com. We have a few Chamber board members in the house tonight that I'm pleased to recognize, one that just sat down. So board members, please stand, give a wave as I say your name. I think Colton Wiegers is the only Chamber board member. If I'm missing anyone, doesn't look like it, then we're good to go. As I stated earlier, this is the fourth episode of this season's Chamber on Tap, which is made possible by our amazing sponsors, and I'd like to recognize them now. Our marquee sponsor is Cannabis Credit Union, which is Saskatchewan's largest credit union. Our promoting sponsors are Thrive Wealth Management and Edward School of Business. Our supporting sponsors, Dreens Catering and Kitchen Socials, LB Distillers, and Sound Lounge by T-Bone. We also have great community sponsors with our friends at the W Law Group, Payworks, Lyft Accounting, and Royal LePage Varsity. So thank you to all of our sponsors for your support of this season's Chamber on Tap. Please join me in giving our amazing sponsors a big round of applause. Tonight's episode of Chamber on Tap will follow our typical format, meaning after Nadine has finished her formal portion, we will open up the floor to all of you for a brief Q&A period with our guests, so keep that in mind. Also, if you have a question but you are not comfortable asking it in front of a crowd, just put up your hand. I'll come over to you. Just let me know what it is and I can ask the question. Your host for this season is none other than the amazing Nadine Kanigan. She is an established entrepreneur and longtime resident of Saskatoon. She's the founder and CEO of the Ultrasound Center, which currently operates 3 locations locally. Please put your hands together and help me welcome your Chamber on Tap host, Nadine Kanigan.
Good evening, everyone. As always, I'm thrilled to be here with you. It is so nice to see all of your smiling faces here. Even those of you in the back that are not smiling, but you're frowning because you're forced to be here. It's nice to see you also. Thank you for the warm welcome, Curtis, and for stepping in for Cody tonight, because Cody's unfortunately feeling a little bit under the weather, so thanks for stepping in, and for the warm introduction. Certainly welcomed on a chilly night like tonight, so kudos to all of you for showing up, because I know it's easy to just point the car home, especially when it's chilly. So you guys are all rock star, very hardy prairie people, so that's awesome. I hope that you all had an amazing Christmas and New Year's. So it's super exciting to be able to welcome in a new decade. There is so much to be thankful for and so much to look forward to. I also just, before we look too far into the future, I do want to reflect a little bit on the past decade, because it really frames our story for tonight. So the last decade, just in the last couple of years in Canada, we really saw quite a powerful cultural shift. In particular, I'm thinking back to October 17th, 2018. So if there's any keeners out there, skill testing question, hint, hint, what do you think would be so significant about that day, October 17th, 2018? Woohoo! Oh, there's a prize for you. There's a prize for you, yes. Oh, there might be some samples in here, I'm not sure. We'll have to dig deeply. So yes, 2018, October 17th, a huge cultural shift. And obviously with that, the potential economic, or the economic potential that would have been realized with the legalization of marijuana certainly sparked the interest of many entrepreneurs. And we're fortunate this evening to have someone joining us who has a really in-depth working knowledge of the industry. So we'll be excited to share his perspective with us tonight. So tonight's guest is a very energetic, a very vibrant young entrepreneur who has made tremendous business strides in just a few short years. Here to share his story with us is the incredibly intelligent Andrey Kharitonov of Fire and Flower Cannabis Company. Come up, Andrey. Great cue.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So when we spoke last week, on Friday, you were just about to embark on what I thought was a very impressive weekend project at home. And so it very quickly showed me just what kind of an energetic young man that you are. Do you want to just share with the crowd what you were up to? Because I think it's awesome.
Well, I was building a jungle gym for my little one, who is 2.5 years old, and as any weekend project, it's not done. Postponed till probably 3 weekends after. But I'm on a mission to finish it. First date was December 25th, then December 31st. Now we're trying to finish it by January 14th. So,
right. So
a little bit postponed.
I think an indoor jungle gym is kind of raising the bar, right? As far as you're going to have all the neighborhood kids over at your house every day, I'm sure.
We already have some requests, yeah.
That's awesome. So in our speaker series so far, we have been chatting with people who are residents of Saskatchewan, born and raised. So they come with some preconceived notions of what it's like to be an entrepreneur in Saskatchewan. You immigrated to Canada about a decade ago, so you really can bring a unique perspective on what it's like to be a business person in Saskatchewan. Can you share a bit of your backstory? Just rewind a bit, let us know your experience starting out in Canada as a new member of the workforce.
Well, we came together with my wife about 10 years ago, and first job I could get was a stock boy at the grocery store across the street from the place we rented. And at that time, now my good friend, before the boss I hated, Michael, who is right there in the back corner.
Sorry, did you say at first
I hated the guy.
you hated him? Okay, just want to make sure that I heard that correctly. Okay, does he know that?
He does know. I make sure I tell it the public all the time because he made me to do some nasty work all the time, but it was part of the job. But so I started working for him, and he saw a hardworking little Russian guy, and he offered me an opportunity to be promoted. And he promoted me to be his grocery manager, and that's basically how I can say when my career in the grocery business took off. And so obviously it was not something that I was planning to do when I came across the board. The dreams was to become an electrician, to finish the trade school, but then, the guy comes in and say, "You want to be grocery manager?" And sure, yeah. And he saw something in me, and then through several promotions I have received, and then 2 years later I became a corporate store manager for Loblaw Company Limited. And yeah.
That's awesome. So what do you think he saw in you that that propelled you to that level? Why do you think you got promoted to manager?
Well, at that time, I was really struggling with my English, and the only way I could compensate for lack of, language skills is extra time, hard work, and just doing the things that people normally wouldn't do. And I guess a lot of immigrants in this sense can reflect. And meanwhile, I was still trying to learn the English, and he also saw the progress of me, not only being a hard worker, but also being a fast learner, and improvement, in my language skills were, significant from the time I came to do my first shift to the time he decided to promote me. I think that was one of the drawing cards, but you can ask him yourself, I guess, because he's not the guy who likes to talk, so I like to get him out of his comfort zone all the time.
Right. Okay, but you didn't stop at store manager, so can you lead us down the path that you went on next?
Yeah, so in 2014 there was an opportunity when the brand known as Axo Foods was being eliminated throughout the whole Canada. There's still some shops left, but basically the approach at that time the company took is we got to go either full market store, which was a your independent grocer, or full discount store, which was no frills. And based on the location and surrounding area, that store that I was currently managing at that time on the 30 Canada Road was chosen to be your independent grocer through the franchise banner. And at that time, it's basically you have to purchase a business and you have to go through a process of buying a business. And as me being the store manager didn't really guarantee anything. So at that time, my wife was completing her PhD, and we were not planning to stay in Saskatoon at that time because she had better opportunities somewhere in the bigger cities. And that's when we decided to make an executive decision to say, okay, well, if we're going to take a risk of going through a franchise, taking a loan, investing at least 5 years. At that time, I thought it would be 25 years, and we have to stay in Saskatoon. So she supported my decision. And that's how we proceed with we went through enormous rounds of interviews and financial income verification, etc. And that's when we purchased the first franchise.
Well, that's awesome. I'm sure there were some challenges that you faced as a young entrepreneur during those years. Are there any that stick out in your mind in particular?
Well, there is a lot of challenges that you face as an entrepreneur, but I get part of being an entrepreneur, and a lot of people here that entrepreneurs can reflect to me, that despite the size of the challenge, you always find a way around it to the point that you kind of step over it and it becomes a past that doesn't really reflect anything on your future other than experience that you just learned. So there's nothing really I can say, oh, that was like a really terrible time, during this time when I owned a grocery store, there were some downsides, obviously, but as an entrepreneur, you figured a way to make it to make happen wherever it needs to happen in order for to fix the issue and just move on.
Right.
Just always have to look at the future.
Right. Well, clearly your work ethic is something that you could attest to that probably helped you through some of those challenges.
I really hope so.
So I'm curious, did you, when you became the store owner, did you still employ some of the staff that were your seniors at that point in time?
Yeah, they're basically, I was fortunate enough that all staff came along with, with the franchise, and that basically gave me a great solid foundation, to make business successful, because there are some people that have been working in the grocery business for over 40 years. And they saw me back 3-4 years ago when I started as a night grocery clerk, and now they were only endorsing me to purchase the franchise because they were willing to work with me, never used the word for me, with me, and I think that I was very blessed to have all those people with me along my side.
Sure, because they would have seen you rise from being stock boy to manager to store owner, so no doubt you maintained a respect with them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you, at some point, decided to sell Andrey's Independent Groceries. Can you let us know what happened and why you made that decision?
There's a little bit more complex question, I would say. There's a lot of decisions that were driven to this. Decision number one, my wife and I, we had a baby 2.5 years ago. And, running a grocery store is a little bit different from the outside perspective than, from running a grocery store is a little bit different than running some other businesses, simply because your business is actually functioning 24/7. And when I say 24/7, when you go home and you think your shift is over, your stores are still open, but when your store is closed, you still actually have people working, stocking shelves overnight, and that's still happening. And whenever the issue arises, you'll get a phone call, because you're the only one point of contact, and you have to make a decision. Your truck is late. So having newborn, lack of sleep, and all that is kind of contributed to the decision. But it's also put the perspective on what involvement I want to have with my child, as well as kind of further perspective of the business. Like, at the time we purchased franchise, I saw myself doing this for the next 25, 35, 45 years, wherever that would take, because for me, I didn't see myself going any further. However, when you achieve certain step, you always have to look a little bit further. And that's what started to happen to me. Okay, well, I'm basically not going to move anywhere now. So is this what I want to do for next decade or 40 years? For some people, the answer would be yes. Some people would be feeling very comfortable doing this. I wanted to go somewhere else and do something different at that time.
Right.
Because I'm still young. Well,
Yeah.
hope I look young, but...
Oh, definitely. Okay, so family comes along. You don't want to dedicate all of your holidays and weekends and the rest of the time to the business. So business goes up for sale. Was there any fear or apprehension at that point in time of stepping out into the unknown?
Well, it's, you make a decision of selling business, and then what comes next. And this is always a fear, but you're getting out of your comfort zone, and you have to kind of start thinking, what do you want to do next? And so was it a hard, complex decision? Absolutely. Was that the decision that my wife and I were certain of? 100%.
Right.
We had no doubt, but going further, we were like, okay, what are we going to do now? We're still entrepreneurs. We do some other businesses. However, to keep myself busy, it was not enough. So that's how I basically decided to join Cannabis.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go from selling one type of green produce and herbs to another. So tell us how you managed to find the cannabis industry.
I like to refer to myself as a florist, because cannabis is a
florist.
flower.
Okay, that's fair.
I was
like
running a grocery shop, now I'm running a flower shop.
Okay, I like that. That's perfect. Okay, so tell us the journey, how you ended up getting linked in with the cannabis industry.
Well, I was sitting home, sold business, was doing basically some homework, like improvements and stuff, and then the opportunity came with a different cannabis retailer at that time, not the one I'm with right now, and they were expanding in Saskatoon, and they needed this manager with experience to look after their location in Saskatoon. So that's how I tagged along, and at that time, zero knowledge about cannabis, zero experience with cannabis, never tried it, even back home when I was in high school, university, never ever tried it in my life. And however, I had a good retail knowledge, and at that time they had a great hesitation. You know nothing about cannabis, you know lots about retail, but nothing about cannabis. We kind of feel the gap here, but fill the gap later on, or fill the gap, smoke the gap, however you want to say that. And then later on, I've been with them for 6 months, and I was approached by a different company, which is right now is the biggest cannabis retailer in Canada, like therefore North America and probably world right now. And they were looking at district manager for Saskatchewan, Manitoba. And originally, when I was joining the first cannabis company, that what I wanted to do in the first place. I would say outgrown a little bit the management of the shop position, which I wanted to manage the network of the stores and being in charge of a little bit bigger project, and also something that does not involve, sacrificing the values that I sold my first business in the first place. Like still being home, for some holidays, and that's I felt the job that will actually do that for me, and it's totally delivering right now.
So what do you think that they saw in you that you became a desirable employee for them?
Well, and I have to brag about myself right now, right?
Yes, you do. You have to tell us all the good things. So you had a lot of retail experience, but no experience with the product itself.
Yeah, and by the time I think cannabis in Canada, in Saskatchewan, expanded a little bit, I became very well known in the cannabis industry, and my knowledge in cannabis improved significantly. So again, I tried different products, different experience, like anatomy of the plant and etc. So at that time, I was not the candidate who knows retail but does know cannabis, who knows retail and then now an expert in cannabis. And in cannabis world right now, even though everybody talks about it, the actively involved people are very, very limited, and the word spreads out really quick. I guess if there is a good employee, great manager, great grower, producer, etc., and that's how I feel it happened. Right. And the person whom I received the phone call from, he's still not revealing the story, how I have zero connection to the guy. He just phoned me once and said, "You want to be district manager?" Sure. Okay,
so they had hunted you. Well, that's exciting. I think that's a lot of people's dream essentially is to be sought out by someone else to help them kind of propel themselves. It seems like there's a lot of series of stepping stones for you in life. It seems like you get to a point, you achieve a goal, and then you're sort of the what next? What's on my plate next? Well, there's still a significant social stigma around marijuana use, both recreational and medicinal. So how has your friends and family embraced your profession, and what have you learned along the way?
So, as I mentioned before, I'm from Russia. Possession of cannabis is probably #1 crime there that people get arrested with, and it's strictly prohibited, and etc. So we're not talking anything that even come close to what we have here. So my mom doesn't tell anyone where I work. She was telling everyone when I was owner of the grocery store. Now she is like, no.
She doesn't say you're a florist and just
no,
leave
she
it at that?
doesn't see me as a florist. No, my younger brother is very proud of me. He is applying for jobs, but just a little bit different experience that we're looking for.
Right. So you can't be overly open with your family just because culturally they know about it, but it's not accepted.
I would say it's accepted. I mean, they have to accept what I do. It's just they don't feel comfortable passing this information further because there's a little bit cultural shift because there's certain things that we accept here. It's not a brainer for things to accept here. Back home, you cannot really walk on the street and say, hey, my son in charge of Central Canada to distributing cannabis in retail stores, which is like, or a lot of, if you talk to some people in Russia who know like a little bit limited of the news network, they don't even know that cannabis is actually legalized in Canada, and how is that even possible to have legalization of cannabis anywhere?
Sure. And has your perspective changed on it? Because you mentioned you had no experience before going into the industry.
So my perspective has changed a lot. The reason I have no experience in cannabis, they're mostly related because all the product back home is from black market, and it's a heavy black market product, so it's not something that I was feeling comfortable to use. Over here, same thing, and also when I was applying for the Canadian citizenship and the residency and et cetera, I didn't want to get dinged just because I want to buy a joint from the black market. And for me, I was prioritizing my value. Did I want to try the product? Yes. Did I want to become Canadian citizen? Probably more that than having my first joint. So like I achieved one, then okay, now cannabis legalized, I can try it. But again, still never happened until I actually started working in the industry.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. So we did speak at length last week about the cannabis industry, and I would encourage anyone who does have specific questions to approach Andrey. He's going to hang out afterwards because you're knowledgeable. You know everything that there is to know about the industry at this point. Something that struck me about our conversation was that you had said that Saskatchewan is actually admired, the industry in Saskatchewan is actually admired by the other provinces in Canada. So I found that interesting. Can you just let everybody know sort of what you think we're doing right and why we're considered industry leaders?
Well, to kind of step back a little bit on this, from the retail perspective and the distribution perspective, when we have a conversation with the shops from the different provinces, Ontario, Alberta, BC, they're all saying that Saskatchewan is only one province that has done legalization right, and mostly just because they actually left it to the private business and had private business to look after the cannabis distribution, retail delivery, retail concept, and etc. And with that, when you have something given to entrepreneurs, something new, you can have a chance to develop it. It's a little bit easier for us to thrive as a province when it happens. And it's basically what happened. Like we have the only one distribution center upon legalization was actually just in Saskatchewan. It's in Saskatoon. Then the private license that they will lottery, there's some hiccups with the lottery and stuff, but still the fact that SLGA had a great vetting process, who is actually going to get the license. It's not that the pothead from the street is going to apply for cannabis and going to sell cannabis now. No, it's like business people who are actually serious about running the business, who actually has stable financial situation in their life, who can actually support. So they're going to get the first, and they're going to be participant in the draw. So it's when people are saying like, I won a lottery. Well, yes, you did win the lottery when you got picked with a permit. However, there's a lot of work for an entrepreneur who was involved in order to get actually listed for that lottery. Because it's not like any guy from the street could go and apply for cannabis.
Sure.
And right now, legalization rules have changed a little bit, so I can speak about that, but later if you like.
So the government doesn't necessarily have such a regulatory hand in our province as in other places in Canada?
We do have a regulatory hand. Like SLGA is basically looking after all the stores. I guess one of the biggest things that are happening in different provinces that Liquor and Gambling Association controlling the supply. So basically it's coming through liquor and gambling associations and to cannabis stores, when in Saskatchewan you can actually deliver that directly from wholesaler, distribution center, or actual LP. So it kind of breaks that little middleman, and you can actually get your product faster at a better price. If you're buying more, you probably can get better deal, just different things that make it happen a little bit easier for entrepreneurs to work
Sure.
with other entrepreneurs.
That's awesome. I also asked you what you think one of the most important things is for a new business owner, and you had said that your answer was that you think it's important for people to get noticed. So I'm sure as a grocery store owner, you could run all sorts of promotions and ads and that sort of thing. With a restrictive industry such as cannabis, how are you able to draw attention to your store within the guidelines? What are you doing to make people aware of who you are?
Guess a little bit step back here because when I was grocery store owner, I was heavily involved in the community, and one of the key indicator of success, I think, it's the involvement of the community for any entrepreneur. And with cannabis being so restrictive on advertising, and you basically cannot put a banner anywhere, like if you put a coaster somewhere, it should be educated. Like there's a lot of restrictions happening right now. The only way you can actually get noticed or get attention, I like to say get attention, is by approaching community, because right now we still have a stigma about cannabis. People don't know, for most people, knowledge about cannabis is you smoke the joint, your brain will rot, you'll die, etc. There's a little bit more into that, and even though some people are very restricted, they don't want to know anything about it, which is fine, but there's some people that actually want to fill that gap, and they'll say, I want to know more. I want to know how that, what difference that will make, if there's any benefits of using that, and what we do is, like, we actually have a community ambassadors in the shops, okay. And there was actually particular employee that, very engaged in the community, who can actually go in the community, and if there's a senior club that want to know more about cannabis, there's actually a person in any location that we have that can actually go and speak to those seniors, saying, here's what you need to know about cannabis, and here's what I can tell you about cannabis, and here's the things that it can deliver. So just by doing this, you can have your name out there. It's not necessarily promoting. It is promoting the business, but at the same time, you increase the knowledge of the community, that we're not drug dealers. We're here to educate, and like even the positions in our shops, they're not called like cannabis seller, cannabis bartender, they're called educators. Okay. So the number one focus is to educate your customer so they know what they buy before they make a purchase. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. So you are quite involved in the business community.
You are a member of SIPE, so the Saskatchewan Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs, which, by the way, I'm like, how come no one asked me to join this? I looked on your website. There wasn't an age restriction, but I guess I'll just take that for what that is. So do you find yourself mentoring other people, young entrepreneurs such as yourself, through the journey? And if so, what kind of advice are you giving them most often?
With SIPE, I have been involved for probably the last 5 years. I'm right now their longest standing board member. And the only one board member who was before me, he's also right in the room over there. Okay. He was our past president. He came to support me. At that time, I was the only one entrepreneur on the board. And I guess the purpose of SIPE was more to engage, connect, and inspire people. I didn't really find myself mentoring anyone directly, more like having simple conversation, you do the coaching, but it was not the direct mentoring of anyone. And but if you were going to be talking the perspective that how I engage and connect with other entrepreneurs, like I hope I did give someone a very good advice back in their life. That's what I really hope so. That's what the SIPE and Chamber of Commerce are all about, to connect people, and hopefully we can, foster the connection and, make something better, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. So what has it been like for you to go from being an entrepreneur to sort of working again as an employee, as a manager?
It's hard. Yeah. You have to report to someone. It's the hardest part. but I'm still an entrepreneur. My wife and I, we've been investing, we've been involved in the real estate for a very long time, and we're still doing that. It's a little bit more offline business for us rather than the actively involved business. For me, I like to keep myself busy and I like to kind of give a little bit, I like to have a different scale of work, right? So when I was a manager of the store, there was a one scale, you manage one location. Now the scale goes up when I have to look after Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario. So when you kind of have a little bit bigger project to take, obviously you feel more important, obviously, but
Sure.
it just generally feels better, and then you feel you make an even bigger impact and difference in what you do.
Yeah. And is there any downtime for you? Because you sound like a very busy person.
I don't know, I'm always happy. I'm in the cannabis industry, I'm always happy.
Okay, this is true. Awesome. Okay, well, we're getting close to the end here. There's just a few segment questions that these lovely people in the orange jackets always like me to ask. Can you think of a time when you saved your company money by thinking outside the box? It's a tough question, so I'm curious.
It is a
curious
tough
as to what
question.
you'll come up
I would, I think it's happening more often than I kind of think about it,
Sure.
but I'd never make a record of it, if you know what I mean. Just for me, being involved in the business, it just happens naturally. It just,
Sure.
You probably came up with some creative decision and it helped, to improve the business, you saved money, but now I think it's just a given, right? So as an entrepreneur, you're not, put a staple on the calendar. Oh, this day I did this.
Yeah.
You just did it and just
Sure.
move on next day. Yeah.
No, that's fair. Are there any role models in your life? And if so, how do you try to emulate their traits?
I have two, and they're very different. Well, one of them would be Warren Buffett. Yeah, for many, I guess, people. Just what I like from him is simplicity, and I would say a outsider visual simplicity. The guy looks very simple, very very casual, but at the same time he kind of his brain works the way no one else does, and but not being heavily involved in a lot of education and in investing in that before, basically self-made, self-taught. So that's what I admire a lot about him. Another one I like is a Grant Cardone. Complete opposite the reason why I like him. So what I like from him is so eccentric, very feeling comfortable, getting on the stage, he can, basically fire up the crowd, self-confidence through the roof. So there's certain things that they're obviously the one thing that connects them is they're very rich, and obviously long-term goal as well.
Sure.
But those are my two role models right now.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so what's down the pipe for you? Where are you headed in the next couple of years? Just to wrap up, just wondering what's brewing in your business.
It's hard to say right now. My vision changes weekly, and
Good to know I'm not the only one. That makes me feel better, actually.
It's changing weekly, and what I had planned 2 weeks ago totally changed this week, and right now I'm very happy with being involved with Fire and Flower, delivering the experience to consumers and educating customers, and running 3 provinces, which is feeling great, and but we're also on our offline business side. My wife and I, we're always making moves about real estate that we're heavily involved, and right now it's hard to predict as any entrepreneur, really hard to plan. You always plan for the best, but you prepare for the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, you're very inspiring. You have a lot going on, so thank you for sharing that with us. We have time for a few questions, 2 or 3. So I know there's some burning questions out there. Hands up, and Curtis will bring you a mic.
Thanks. I'm wondering what kind of interprovincial rules there are in the cannabis industry, and how can you source from LPs from more than one province into one store?
There is no such a thing as like an interprovincial rule. If you talk referring to moving product from Saskatchewan to Manitoba, there's no such a thing. You cannot do that. There's like rules that dictated that by the federal government, which is minimum age, like ID and etc. But in terms of delivering the product, if you get products stamped for Saskatchewan that, you know, delivering from Canopy Growth or Aurora, there's a stamp for Saskatchewan, that product can only arrive in Saskatchewan stores. If there's a stamp for Ontario, same story. So if one province, you know, has a lot of, like we have a province, we have stores in Alberta, Ontario, Manitoba. So if we have one province sitting long on certain products, we don't have ability at this point to move it from one province to another province that maybe needs it. Yeah.
In the back there.
Hi, thank you for sharing today. I'm just wondering how much access do you have to the current research that's being done on marijuana?
My wife is teaching at university, and she's always, you know, she's not doing the research about cannabis, but she's always telling me about the different research going on regarding cannabis. I know the one that's going with the CBD and epilepsy right now in the University of Saskatchewan. So I've been, I would say I'm not involved, but I do know a lot of information about that. That's something that, like, I was very interested about. I just know that right now, I think it was from US that there was discovered 2 more cannabinoids from cannabis as of today. So that's my research knowledge about that. However, I'm always willing to learn more about that.
Okay, and last one at the back here.
Hi, just a quick question regarding your education. You had mentioned that you have an education group and you talk to seniors. A lot of them obviously have medical conditions, so how do you broach that, and who do you encourage them to talk to, especially when you're talking about the research through the U of S? So where do you direct them?
So this is a great question. So I represent the recreational side of cannabis. On the recreational side, we're not allowed to give medical advice at any point of sale. And obviously, when we do the educational session, we're more talking about the experience, what you're going to have for cannabis. And as for medical advice, there's on Health Canada right now, there's actually a list of the cannabis professionals that can actually give you professional advice regarding medical use for cannabis. And there's like a list directed right for the Saskatchewan province as well, that you can go and access it and go and find out what will work for you. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So I think before we go, we have to do a draw for some very exciting prizes. Would you like to do the honors?
Yeah, sure. Try not to look.
No cheating.
I just draw the name of the lady who I used to work with in
Perfect.
Cannabis. Ashley Trudeau.
All right, where is she? Okay, come on up. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. We also have a presentation from the Rattlers. Okay. Good job. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Andrey. Let's give you a round of applause, and then we'll give the floor to Curtis.
All right, so we have the Rattlers here today with a few different door prizes. So I'm going to get Michelle here to draw a name.
Neil and Nancy, sitting at our table.
Oh, there we go. Come on up, Neil and Nancy. Congratulations. Should get them both of these? Yeah. We got 2 scarves for you guys there. And then we also have some Rattlers tickets.
And Brad Redicott.
Brad, come on up. Yeah. Thank you, Michelle. Here you go, Brad. Awesome. On behalf of the team over at the Chamber and all of our sponsors, Connexus, Thrive, Edwards, Dreens, LB, Sound Lounge, W Law, Payworks, Lyft, Royal LePage, and the Radlers, thank you for making Chamber on Tap your networking event of choice. Please stay a while, enjoy another drink and some networking. If you need an introduction to anyone here or have any questions about the Chamber, talk to one of us in the orange jackets or any of the other Chamber representatives, any of the Chamber board members. Also, if you want to have some other questions for Andrey, he also has some other swag bags. I don't know if there's any product in the swag bags. I don't know if maybe there isn't one, so better come up quick. Lastly, keep your ear to the ground for more great Chamber events, and we will see you all back here next month, Wednesday, February 5th, for episode 5, where Nadine will be interviewing Alex Fallon with Srita. Please plan a safe ride home and have a great night.